The kingdom of reverie was a land of darkness, where the power of the few wealthy corrupted the lives of the many. It was a time when slavery was rampant and the lives of the poor were worth less than the copper in the pockets of the rich. The only light in this darkness was the young and benevolent Princess Isidora, a beautiful woman who had dedicated her life to helping the oppressed and the downtrodden. Isidora had always been a thorn in the side of the elites who profited from the slave trade, extortion, and other illicit activities. Her reforms had made it almost impossible for them to exploit the women and children, the most premium of subjects, the more pure, the more pennies. But most unforgivable was that her charity had given hope to those who had none, and hope was simply bad for business. Her goodness had made her enemies, and those enemies had decided that it was time for her to have a taste of her own medicine. The secret society of interlopers, known only as the Alpha Order, had been assigned to murder the princess. They were a group of skilled artifacts who operated in the shadows, and their methods were brutal and efficient. They had been hired by a group of elites who had grown tired of Isidora's meddling in their heinous affairs. The Order had infiltrated the palace's kitchen disguised as a serving maid, and they waited for the right moment to insert the poison. When the cooks had turned their backs, they slipped the vial of poison into the pot of soup that was being prepared for the princess's dinner. Later that evening, Isidora sat down to enjoy her meal, completely unaware of the danger that lay within. She ate heartily, savoring the flavors of the soup, until she suddenly felt a sharp pain in her stomach. Within moments, she was writhing in agony. Oddly, that day, the princess' chambers were unusually locked, and her personal servants dismissed just hours before coincidentally. As the poison worked its way through Princess Isidora's body, she was consumed by agony unlike any she had ever experienced. At first, she felt a burning sensation in her throat, as if the food she had eaten had suddenly caught fire. But the pain quickly spread, like a wild consuming everything in its path. She began to convulse and writhe on the floor, her body racked with spasms. Her eyes bulged from their sockets, and her skin turned a sickly shade of green. She gasped for air, but found that her lungs were no longer functioning properly. It was as if the poison was suffocating her from the inside out. The pain continued to escalate until it felt like every bone and piece of flesh in her body was on fire. She could feel the poison eating away at her flesh, as if tiny insects were burrowing into her skin. Her mind was filled with visions of hellish landscapes and grotesque creatures, as if the poison had unlocked some hidden doorway to my realm of nightmares. As the princess lay dying, she knew that her life was slipping away. She had always been a kind and generous ruler, but now her reign was coming to a violent and senseless end. She had not even had the luxury of enjoying her first kiss or plan her first womanhood ball, a tradition amongst royals as soon as they reached the age of 1 and 7/10 days. She tried to hold on for as long as she could, but the pain was too great. With one final gasp, she breathed her last breath and slipped into the eternal darkness. The poison that killed Princess Isidora was not just any ordinary poison. It was a rare and deadly substance known as Wyvern's Bane, which could only be found in the most treacherous and remote regions of the world. Legend had it that Wyvern's Bane was created by an ancient and powerful necromancer who had imbued the poison with dark magic that could only be unleashed when it came into contact with a pure of heart living being. The Micromancer had then entrusted the poison to a group of powerful bankers who had used it to carry out their own twisted schemes. Over the centuries, Wyvern's Bane had become a highly coveted commodity among those who practiced the dark arts. The Alpha Order had been seeking the poison for years, and they had finally succeeded in acquiring a small vial of it through their connections with the black market. The Order had chosen to use Wyvern's Bane to poison Princess Isadora precisely because of its dark and twisted properties. They believed that the poison would not only kill the princess, but also unleash a wave of chaotic aura that would serve their goals of world domination. And so, as the Wyvern's Bane worked its way through Princess Isadora's body, it also unleashed a torrent of dark aura that twisted the very fabric of reality of those who looked upon the fallen princess during the grandest of funerals the kingdom has ever witnessed. The assassination of Princess Isadora was just one of many covert operations carried out by the Alpha Order. They had infiltrated the highest levels of government and the royal court, and were able to carry out their sinister plans without being detected. As the news of the princess's death spread throughout the land, the Alpha Order was careful to cover their tracks and ensure that they would not be implicated in the crime. They knew that the people of the kingdom were capable of great violence and retribution, and they did not want to risk being caught. Instead, they continued to work behind the scenes, manipulating events and pulling the strings of power from the shadows. They would stop at nothing to achieve their ultimate goal of world dominance, using their skills as assassins and their cunning as manipulators to achieve their aims. The people of the kingdom were left reeling in the aftermath of the princess's death, unsure of who to trust or where to turn. The Alpha Order had sown the seeds of chaos and destruction, and they would continue to do so until they had achieved their ultimate goal of absolute power and control. This assassin was unusual from the rest of the others, because it required at least 5 assassins from the legendary group of the Unknown working together and secrecy, cunning, and wit to make sure the poisoning of the princess goes successfully. The first member of the legendary group of the Unknown to be involved in the poisoning of Princess Isadora was a man named Zephyr. Zephyr was an expert in disguises and infiltration, and he helped Lyra get into the palace undetected. He posed as a visiting dignitary, gaining access to the palace and distracting the guards while Lyra made her way to the kitchen. The second member of the group was a woman named Seraphine. Seraphine was an expert in poisons, and she helped Lyra craft the lethal concoction that would be used to kill Princess Isadora. She provided Lyra with the necessary ingredients and helped her mix them together to create the perfect poison. The third member of the group was a man named Dante. Dante was an expert in weapons and combat, and he provided backup for Lyra in case things went wrong during the assassination attempt. He stationed himself outside the palace, ready to come to Lyra's aid at a moment's notice. The fourth member of the group was a woman named Aurora. Aurora was an expert in seduction and manipulation, and she helped Lyra gain the trust of the palace cooks. She posed as a wealthy noblewoman, charming the cooks with her wit and beauty, and convincing them to let her help with the preparation of the princess's meal. The final member of the group was a man named Orion. Orion was an expert in strategy and planning, and he helped coordinate the entire operation. He had studied the palace's layout and schedules, and he helped the other members of the group time their actions perfectly to ensure that everything went smoothly. Together, the members of the Loathed group of the unknown worked in secrecy, cunning, and skill to make sure the poisoning of the princess went off without a hitch. They knew that failure was not an option, and they were willing to do whatever it took to complete the Blade orders.